Thank you for joining another episode of We the People with Trisha Flanagan. I am here with everyone's favorite executive producer, Michelle Albergo. And let's start off with an update on the ground. She has been our eyes, ears, and understanding on the ground in Florida when she was going through Hurricane Ian, and all the country, all the world was really watching. And we know you've had some record-breaking reparations there, right? Governor DeSantis hit the ground running, and that bridge to Sanibel Island that was taken out, you've recovered, and he's built that back up in record time, hasn't he?
Yeah, he certainly has. Welcome, everybody. Again, I'm so glad to join you guys again this evening. But yes, Governor DeSantis has been rocking and rolling down here. He's been ready. He's prepared. He was prepared long before the storm even hit, and he mobilized the ground troops of linemen. I think the number was like 46,000 linemen were down here in the state of Florida. I still see the trucks, but I can tell you we're like 99% up and running. There are still small pockets that still are without power. But, yeah, you talked about Sanibel, and Sanibel was hit really hard, and the Causeway Bridge connecting Sanibel to the main island was significantly damaged, and they projected having it repaired by the end of October. Then, oh my God, I said President DeSantis. I'm going to get in trouble. And then they said it would be done by October 21st, and they actually completed the repair. It's a temporary repair, but so people can get to their homes. They repaired it, and they opened it on October the 19th. So literally 3 weeks post a Cat 4 hitting us, we already have infrastructure being at least repaired enough so that the residents can get back to their homes that have suffered such significant losses. Still, if you drive down like Fort Myers, mostly anywhere down the coastline in Southwest Florida, what you'll find is just people have gutted their entire homes, and you'll see lots of debris on the sides of the road. That also is being taken care of quite quickly. I think it was like I got to think. A lot. There's a lot of garbage. And I see the trucks going up and down 75, picking up all this debris. The beaches are still closed, and that's because there's still just some debris in the sifting sand in the water. And there's been some high bacteria levels. In fact, if people have heard, a gentleman, I believe from Michigan, who came down to help, actually passed away from a bacterial infection from the remnants of the storm. But all in all, we are doing well in Southwest Florida. We're going to be back stronger than ever, and a lot of that has to do with the preparedness of our great governor, Ron DeSantis.
And Ron DeSantis has not only been a superhero in terms of the hurricane and repair and the like, but he did a great job in the debate the other night against Charlie Crist. I think you're looking at another re-election for Governor Ron DeSantis in a few weeks here. What are your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Charlie Crist, I'm not even sure why he would want to stand on a debate stage with the record that Ron DeSantis has in the state of Florida. Our economy is I think, the best in the country. He kept us open. He did not lock us down. Businesses were able to survive. Our kids were able to go to school. He brought in a phenomenal Florida Surgeon General, Dr. Latipo, who actually believes in science. And so he managed to keep Floridians safe, protect the vulnerable, keep us open, and our economy is booming because of that. And let's think about something. If Florida wasn't successful, I'd love to know why everybody's leaving in droves from states like New York, New Jersey, and California and moving to Florida. Not only citizens are moving to set up residences there, but businesses are coming here in droves as well. So with a track record like Ron DeSantis, I know I wouldn't even want to stand on a stage with him. He has the skills. He's done it. He's proven it. And we're going to keep him here for another 4 years. Bye-bye,
Well,
Charlie.
that's great news. And like you said, with him comes the great Florida Surgeon General Latipo. And Dr. Latipo really took on some heat about divulging that there's an 84% increased risk in cardiomyopathy and cardiac issues with the COVID vaccine. And, he's leading the way with truth in the face of these COVID vaccination narratives from the left. So that's going to be great news that you'll have him for another 4 years as well. But
Absolutely.
as we pivot to the critical midterms coming up, I don't want to waste another moment in bringing on our honored and special guest again tonight. Please join me in welcoming the great Clay Clark, and let's get his perspective on all this too.
Well, hey, the only thing I'm going to correct you on real quick is I'm not great. I'm just very organized and very aggressive, and I'm honored to be here with you tonight. And I just think hopefully I can drop some knowledge bombs that our listeners did not know that people can find to be helpful right now as we head into the midterms and as we see the BRICS nations really pushing to introduce a new currency into the world.
Well, do tell. Lead with that, please. We don't want to bury the headlines. What's that all about, Clay?
Okay, well, let me just, I'll kind of tee this up, and I know that a lot of your listeners are very educated on this subject. When I say educated, informed, I think everybody listening to your show is educated, but let me just throw this out here. So in 1971, America got off the gold standard per the recommendation of Henry Kissinger. All right. And in 1971, Klaus Schwab started the World Economic Forum per the recommendation of Henry Kissinger. All right. So America, since World War II, has enjoyed a status of what we would call the world's reserve currency. So people respect our currency. People look at our currency and say, wow, the US dollar. You know, if you travel, if you used to go on a cruise back, let's say in the late 90s, or, you know, countries, foreign countries, they wanted the US dollar. People want the dollar. They would celebrate the dollar. Well, and what happened is in 2017, which is a long time after 1971, the Bank of International Settlements, which is known as the central bank of central banks, they upgraded gold as a tier one asset. They're saying that the dollar has always been, the US dollar has always been the only tier one asset. They're saying now gold is the tier one asset as well. So let's go back. 1971, we get off the gold standard. You say, well, what gives the dollar value then if it's not backed by anything? Well, in 1974, Henry Kissinger, there he is again, he negotiated this thing called the petrodollar. So America has had this really bizarre relationship that's worked out well for us with Saudi Arabia, where we say to Saudi Arabia, we'll protect you militarily, but we want you to only sell your gas, your oil exports in exchange for US dollars. So to give the dollar value, we want you to commit to only selling to selling your exports, your oil exports in exchange for US dollars. And that's worked out really well. But again, 2017 now, the Bank of International Settlements upgraded the gold as being a tier one asset. Now, also simultaneously, Russia left the G8 countries. Now we have the G7. And so Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. That's the BRICS nations. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They formed an alliance of countries called the BRICS nations. And they represented 41% of the Earth's population, 41%. And they've now recruited Venezuela to join them. They've now recruited Iran to join them. They've now recruited Turkey. And these countries are hoarding the Earth's gold. And many people that are pro-America, of which I am, have sat back and thought, well, it doesn't really matter, what BRICS is doing because it's Brazil, Russia, India, China. The power of the US dollar will never be questioned. Well, Saudi Arabia 7 days ago said, we're going to go ahead and change everything, and we're going to team up with the BRICS nations. Thus, we're leaving the US dollar. So now we have a petrodollar that isn't backed by petro. So we now have a dollar that doesn't have value in the eyes of many, many countries. Over 70% of the Earth's population is now moving in favor of BRICS, over 70%. So Egypt has now said, we're de-dollarizing. Russia is now saying, yeah, we're not going to sell you our oil anymore in exchange for US dollars. And you're seeing many, many countries do this. So you may see the end of the US dollar as we know it very soon.
Tell me, Clay, I mean, this is something that every American needs to know about. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on how it all folds into the fact that the dollar is losing less of its value in terms of what Congress has done, what the Federal Reserve is doing, the printing of the money, the quote unquote Inflation Reduction Act, which is nothing more than a Democrat wish list and a shot between the eyes to the fossil fuel industry in favor of the Green New Deal. How is all of that going to work together? And is that going to make the situation even worse?
Yeah, well, what's happening is, and I wish I had better news, but in 2016, Joe Biden gave the keynote address at the World Economic Forum. So Klaus Schwab invited Joe Biden to come in to deliver a talk, and Joe Biden delivered the talk, and the talk was called the Fourth Industrial Revolution, Mastering the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the Great Reset. So Joe Biden gave that talk in 2016. Okay, the Great Reset plan was created. It's called the Fourth Industrial Revolution, the Great Reset. That plan was written, codified, planned out in 1971. So Joe Biden's very much a part of that. And the part of it is they have to get the U.S. out of the way to implement their ultimate solution, which is called central bank digital currencies. You often see the abbreviation CBDCs. You'll hear people say, a lot of times, politicians will throw out acronyms or abbreviations and people don't know what they mean, so we quit listening. You're going to hear people say CBDCs and you go, but CBDC, central bank digital currency, is a currency that is programmable. You can turn it on or off in the way you can turn off a light switch or on a light switch, or in the way you can turn on someone's social media account and the way you can turn someone's social media account off. CBDCs. So Rishi Sunak, that's the new prime minister of the UK, the United Kingdom, his father-in-law, the father-in-law of the new prime minister of the United Kingdom, happens to be the lead technology developer behind central bank digital currencies, a member of the World Economic Forum, a person pushing central bank digital currencies. So we may be facing a time where our, you might call them the Five Eyes countries, or countries that we once had a tight alliance with or allegiance with, countries like Canada or countries like the United Kingdom, they are beginning to all go the way of the central bank digital currency. And that currency will be backed by gold, and it is being pushed by the BRICS nations. So I am, without setting my hair on fire, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most concerned you could possibly be, and 1 having no concerns at all about the future of the U.S. dollar, I'm in like the 12 territory now. It's like I've been talking about this for 2.5, 3 consecutive years. I, in my own personal life, have been buying gold and silver, paying off. I don't owe any money. These sorts of things. I preach these things. I teach these things. I talk about these things. But now many people are waking up, and I think it's in large part to Robert Kiyosaki sounding the alarm. It's also, that's the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad books. Also, you are starting to see the international media, an organization called WION. They're one of the major broadcasting organizations in India. They're now talking about what the world looks like when the U.S. dollar is no longer relevant. Soccer moms and dads are starting to see the phenomenon of $7 eggs. And I'll just give you an example about the strong leadership of Florida, that be Ron DeSantis being thwarted by the federal government. So I have a client in Florida, strong economy, and DeSantis is doing a great job. And I would vote for him. For anybody out there that's debating that, I would vote for him. I think we all know that. But one of my clients, they've recently taken the prices off of their menus for everything. And it's because the prices are changing now about every 12 hours for their menu in the restaurant. And we're talking about a major restaurant. If I mention the name, a lot of people in that area of Florida would go, oh, I know who they are. Big restaurant. And they're going, we're going to charge, I'm just giving an example, for eggs, for an egg breakfast, we would charge this amount. Well, tomorrow now we have to charge 24 cents more. And then the next day it's like 50 cents more, 10 cents more, 8 cents more. Because in restaurants, you only operate within about a 15 to 20% profit margin. If you're a healthy restaurant, you try to, be profitable, obviously. And they got to the place where they're, change the price, print the new menu, change the price, print the menu, change the price. Then they went to electronic. They're going, we're just going to change it on the boards and we'll change it on the QR code. We'll just do the QR code. We'll change it there. And now they're going, forget it. I mean, we can't even keep up. So now they're literally telling their customers, ask about prices as prices change daily. And this is becoming a normal phenomenon. You're seeing grocery stores. I'm sure people, now that I'm saying this, they'll mention that have you noticed that a lot of grocery stores have changed to a digital pricing, where the price on the item in the grocery store, it changes daily? It used to be they print out a piece of paper and they put the tag with the SKU there. You can SKU it, boop, you can scan to see what the price of something is. It would say in the frozen food section of a lot of places, they're now putting up these digital things that are changing all the time. And it's pretty alarming. But we are at the threshold of what is called hyperinflation. And the only thing that's kept us away from hyperinflation is the faith that people have in the U.S. currency. Well, people do not have faith in the competency, let alone the mental stamina or the integrity as a person of Joe Biden. They don't have any faith in his mental stamina. They don't have any faith in his integrity. They don't have any faith in him as a person. They don't have any faith about his leadership skills. They don't have any faith about the words he's saying. They don't have any faith he's not just lying at all the time, because he lies all the time. So we're to a place now where the world doesn't trust him as a leader. It'd be one thing if we were in a bad spot, but people trusted him, but the world does not trust Joe Biden at all as a person. And then they also don't trust the economic viability of our dollar. And the world doesn't trust the uncertainty of the market we're in. And now the countries that are ushering in their new currency, they're going to be ushering in a new currency. They are backing their currency by gold. So I've given people a lot of problems. I'd like to give your listeners a few solutions, and I don't want it to feel like it's a sales pitch. I want it to feel like it's a solution. So I'm trying to, make sure. So if you're out there today and you have a local gold and silver buyer that just understand that Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, everybody, they're all buying gold and silver, and because they're getting ready for the economic switch to go to a gold-backed new currency. I would recommend everybody out there has a certain percentage of your income in gold and silver. That would be my recommendation for you. Then the follow-up question would be, who do you buy it from? If you're listening out there and you already have a gold and silver buyer you trust, keep doing that. I buy from a company called Beverly Hills Precious Metals, and I've worked with them for years. And so that's who I recommend at bh-pm.com. But whoever you use, you need to do that. And then second, not necessarily second priority, but second on my list, you need to make sure you're have enough food in place in the event of a economic collapse or a correction. So in Florida, hurricane, okay, General Flynn, friend of mine, partner of mine. We worked together at the tour. Eric Trump, friend of mine, partner of mine. We worked together at the ReAwaken America tour. Both of those guys had a plan in place for the hurricane. And their families survived. They weathered the storm. They had damages, but they weren't starving. They thought about these things. We need to just be reasonable and proactive, not freaking out, but we need to make sure we've got food and supplies available in the event. Because imagine what will happen. Imagine what will happen. Think about this. The world was shocked. The international community cannot get over this. They cannot believe that Saudi Arabia, which, by the way, is the petro in the word petrodollar, they can't believe that Saudi Arabia said, now we're teaming up with BRICS. They can't believe that. It's blown away. So imagine that Saudi Arabia says we no longer accept the US dollar. That's all it takes, and everything falls apart. That's just that verbal statement. And all of a sudden you see what happened in Venezuela. You see that. So we really need to be of sound mind right now, and we need to go. And so I buy a lot of stuff from My Patriot Supply. I don't have a promo code to give you. I don't have a thing, but you can go. There's a lot of great show sponsors that do that, I'm sure. And then Sherwood.tv. It's an Oklahoma doctor that I respect, highly respected doctor who's treated over 10,000 COVID patients. That's a Sherwood.tv, Dr. Sherwood. He's treated over 10,000 COVID patients with 0 deaths. He has organic food that has long shelf life as well. So those would be just solutions for you.
Well, this is information every viewer needs to hear about. And, I agree with you, Clay, that it's not time for panic, but it is certainly time to prepare. And I want to toss some things out to you that in my area of concern make what you just said all the more urgent. And I'd like to I want to talk about some time frames around this. At number one, something you said really, really impacted my understanding of the Biden administration's impact on the market. And that's this, that what you're talking about is something that I think relates to the Consumer Confidence Index, which is one of those markers that really fuels the future of all of these prices. And, we get these inflation numbers on a monthly and a quarterly basis, but that time lag to when we see, there's 9%, over 9% inflation, but prices are up 40%. When you look at the feed that farmers have to buy for the chickens and the pigs and the animals that you're talking about that produce the eggs and the meat. that those prices are up depending on the type of feed, anywhere from 27 to over 40%. And so now we're seeing the spring animals come to market. Do you think that that's what's impacting some of these real strong leaps that you just mentioned about these
Well,
minute by minute changes almost? And what can we do to keep that time frame in mind and be even more prepared?
Well, one of the things about the ReAwaken America tour, which is very interesting, but if you go to timetofreeamerica.com, the mainstream media, by the way, they cannot handle this discussion. They don't understand why I hop on shows like yours, where I would say, I might say like yours, a patriotic show that is just, maybe not a household name, but regionally doing well. They don't understand why I do that, and then why I hop on One America or CNN, or I did a Washington Post interview the other day. They don't get, like, why am I willing to do interviews on any outlet? And why don't I make any money from the tour? So these mainstream media outlets, okay, they reach out and they call the vendors and they say, Mr. Speaker Company, Mr. Videography Company, Mr. Were you paid? How much did Mr. Clark pay you? Mr. Porta Potty, how much were you paid? And they do their investigative research, and we let people who go to the ReAwaken America tour name their price. So I'm not kidding. Mainstream media actually went person to person at the last event we did in Pennsylvania, asking people, hi, I'm with Channel Yada Yada. How much did you pay for your ticket? And people are going, $25, $60, $250, $80, $20. Then they're going, what? And they go, well, Mr. Clark, let's name our price, So we've been to one of these before or two. And they don't get it, because the Rolling Stone did an article talking about how we've bitten off more than we can chew because we're losing money. They don't get it. And I'm going, we're trying to save the nation here. Okay. So as we go to these places, I'm meeting people all over the country. So we're in Oregon. And I'm talking to a farmer. He's got tears in his eyes, but he's not a crier. Beard. Oh. Tears of resolve, though. He says, Mr. Clark, can I speak to you, sir? I said, yes. He goes, the cost of fertilizer is up double for me. I'm one of the largest independent farms in my area, and we have only been able to plant a quarter of what we normally would plant because we don't have enough money for the fertilizer, and we have no idea if we're going to get that money back. We don't know. And the banks can't lend to keep up with the increased, because it's a based business. And so I'm just telling you, as one of the large independent growers, our revenue, the amount of food we're producing will be 1/4 of what we normally produce. And we're one of the largest ones in this area. Then you have folks like Alfie Oakes, one of the largest producers in Florida, well-known in Florida. He speaks at the ReAwaken America tour. And Alfie has said similar statements. I don't want to quote him or misquote him. I'm just saying Alfie has made statements about the lack of, you just cannot increase the cost of fertilizer double, triple, and then have farmers be able to keep up with it, So every independent farmer that I've spoken to, every one of them, has said they're growing about half as much as they grew last year. All of them. So I was just thinking about the people I know, and I'm thinking, how many people do I know that want to eat half as much next year? Now, it's debatable that I could eat less, and we all could eat less and eat healthier. But I'm just saying, I haven't interviewed someone who says, oh yeah, next year, to show my patriotism, I'm going to be eating half of what I normally eat. You just don't see that. You don't hear that, but you do hear the farmers. So the farmers have been telling me this. And the farmers were telling me, and this seems crazy, okay, this is over a year ago. They were going, at some point, eggs will be over $5. And I'm going, what? And now they're 7, 8. And I meet people in all different industries. I mean, oil and gas people, and they've all told me what would happen a year ago, and it's all happening. But what I'm hearing from the farmers is they're like, you'll be at about $16 for eggs this time next year. And gas should be about 10 a gallon. And they'll be half as much. So that's what I'm trying to communicate in a way that doesn't, make people pull their hair out and, set their hair on fire. But I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, we're at a place in space right now where we need to sober up, waking up. You remember when the U.S. the dream team, the U.S. basketball team went to Barcelona and we beat everybody by 35 points a game?
Yeah.
We're at a place now. Remember when the U.S. basketball team, I don't remember the year, but remember when the U.S. basketball team went over there and we got beat? The U.S. basketball team got beat. I mean, remember, we went to Barcelona and we destroyed everybody. We were dominating. Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. But then there was a year where we went, whoa, we got beat. And it was like, we not only got beat, but we got beat solidly. And some of the analysts were like, well, it's because we didn't send over our best players, and because of this. That's kind of where we're at right now. It's like we have not only gone from first place to second, but I encourage everyone to look it up tonight. China is now exercising their military might. They're showing how big their force is. So militarily, we've been outdone. Financially, we've been outdone. And we're about ready to see what that means for the world's food supply and the value of the U.S. currency. So I'm not trying to be negative, but I don't have the mental capacity to hop on a show like yours with your great listeners and to fill people full of hopium. So my priority list tonight is vote DeSantis, vote DeSantis, vote DeSantis, and then vote DeSantis. And because you're a Democrat, you can only vote once, or because you're not a Democrat, you can only vote once, right? But you need to go out there and vote DeSantis and tell your friends to vote DeSantis and why. I mean, it's very important we do that, okay? Vote conservatives, get it done, red wave, okay? Second thing, though, make sure your family's prepared. I mean, just be smart about it. Just make sure your family's prepared. They're going to go, Mom, why are you buying all this food? You're like, trust me, I'll be a smart person later. And anybody who knows anybody who lived through the Depression, or you've heard those stories, there was a time not so long ago where Americans were scrounging around looking for foil, looking for mason jars and cans, and we're about ready to head into that again, and that's just a factual statement.
And we all appreciate the truth, because that's what we're about. We don't want to pump people up with false information. I'd rather have the straight truth, as I know most Americans would. And I think that, one of the things you mentioned, the elections coming up, we are huge DeSantis supporters, of course, all the way around. We've got some other pivotal governorships that one is in Arizona with Carrie Lake, got to get her elected. We've got some obviously critical midterm elections. I see hope there. Now, let's be realistic. Let's look at the fact that that's the first step. For 2 years, we can get a majority in Congress. There aren't even enough seats open to get a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate, but we can gain some seats there. But we're still going to have somebody in the Oval Office that would veto any meaningful legislation that would change things around. But 2024 is not too far off on the horizon. These governorships are going to be a win for all America, because the more we anchor freedom in every state, the better. But talk to me a little bit, Clay, about what you foresee happening in the midterm and how we start to change that tide with this all-important vote coming up.
Well, the one thing I'll speak to Carrie Lake. I look at Carrie Lake, and a lot of people tell me, they say, Clay, how conservative is she? When did she become a conservative? And I think these are legitimate questions. But a lot of people that were previously reluctant to go all in as a conservative for various reasons are now recognizing our country's at stake right now. So I think that, although I don't agree with everything that Carrie Lake's ever said, I really do feel strongly that she's a great fit. You know what I mean? It's like Ron DeSantis, who was he politically before he became governor? And now look what a great job he's doing. So I think we just need to be like, it is conservatives. I'm not attacking all conservatives. I'm just going to attack myself. As conservatives, we tend to think through things a lot. And we tend to go, well, I'll tell you what, he's conservative, but I don't know how conservative he is. I mean, does he own how many guns does he have? Right? I mean, we start to really go, well, he's conservative, but he went to this college, and you start to really, and then you go, well, I tell you what, I see a lot of conservatives. They go, well, I'm going to vote for it. And they pick a candidate it's not possible for them to win. I see a lot of conservatives that vote for the guy who checks every box but has no chance at winning at all, because he's not close. So please don't throw away your votes, okay? So let's assume that we get the right people in office right now. It's going to be a hold the line. It's going to be 2 years of just saying no, and then the average American's going to go, Biden was actually trying to push that? How anti-American could you get? You're going to see that over and over. It's going to be like, wow, Biden was trying to push that? It's like the moms right now. I've talked to so many moms at the ReAwaken America tour who tell me they didn't recognize how bad the political system was until they saw them trying to push the transgender narrative in the schools, the critical race theory, and the super sexualized propaganda. And at that point, they recognized, wow, that's why I need to get involved. So you're going to see 2 years of just exposure. And not a lot of wins, but a lot of blockage. It's almost like you're stopping the bleeding, figuratively speaking. Someone's been injured and we're stopping the bleeding. We're not We're not winning. We're not winning. We're not winning gold medals here. We're just stopping the bleeding. That's how it's going to be for a couple of years. Okay. And you hope you can get domestic drilling going. You hope some governors are like, screw the federal mandates, screw the federal injunctions. We're going to start drilling. You hope you see that kind of thing. So we're energy independent again, like we were under President Trump. And then I pray every day that we get our Trump card back, because I met President Trump. I don't exaggerate the extent of the conversation we had. I know Eric, his son, very well, but I got a chance to have what I would consider to be an elongated conversation with President Trump there less than 14 days ago. And he loves our country. I mean, this just in, he loves our country and he's the real deal. And even though it was a smaller gathering and, we were talking, he's not fake. He's a real deal. He loves our country, and Eric, his son, loves our country. The family loves the country. And we really do. I think a Trump DeSantis 2024 ticket would be awesome. I also like the idea of a Trump gnome ticket. There's a lot of people pragmatically that frankly, they love to see women in leadership. I have no problem with women in leadership. I have a lot of women in leadership positions in my businesses. In fact, most of our managers are women in my businesses. That's great. But I could see I could see a Trump gnome ticket. I could see a Trump DeSantis. Those are people that were pretty strong against the lockdowns, quarantines, curfews, et cetera. But we want to see a continuity of Make America First thought. So it would be great to see DeSantis as a vice president, and then to see him follow Trump 4 years with 8 more years of DeSantis. I mean, wouldn't that be a great thing for our country to see 12 years of Make America Great Again? Wow. So that's what I'm praying for. But I mean, Klaus Schwab, the Great Reset, BRICS nations, they're coming after the U.S. dollar. They're doing it right now. I can't exaggerate. I can't overhype. I can't explain how intensely everybody needs to wake up to the fact that they're trying to destroy the value of the U.S. dollar right now.
Well, I think you hit every nail on every head and what we have to accomplish. And I personally would love to see that Trump DeSantis ticket. As a woman, I have no problem with men in leadership because I think it's about who can do the job, not filling, a checking off a gender box. And I'd like to bring this back to the full circle kind of World Economic Forum issue that you brought up with Klaus Schwab, and with we know that with King Charles, now ascending to the throne after the death of Queen Elizabeth, and with all the world players who are lining up behind and within the World Economic Forum, don't you think we need some strong leadership to the tune of what only I think a Trump DeSantis ticket could provide, because you've got the best of both worlds there.
Back in the day, this is probably an analogy that someone won't appreciate. This is pre-Christ, by the way, folks. So I apologize that I'm a former disc jockey. Okay, I used to run a company that was one of America's largest entertainment companies for weddings back in the day. But there were certain rap groups back in the day, like the Wu-Tang Clan, where any guy could get behind the mic and you would go, "Oh, that guy's awesome." And then the next guy would get behind the mic and you would say, "Oh, that guy's awesome." It was like, it wasn't a step down to have a different guy on the mic. Wouldn't that be fun to watch Trump and DeSantis do press conferences?
I would watch. I'll buy tickets now.
Wouldn't that just be fun to see? I mean, Trump could, do very well during any type of press conference he's doing. But wouldn't it be fun to have him pass the mic over and say, "Hey, Ron, can you talk to these people for a minute?" Because Ron has gotten very skilled at dealing with reporters. So has Carrie Lake. And I dealt with this with the ReAwaken America tour. Recently we do these events trying to save the country. That's the purpose of it. And the mainstream media had a mainstream media person actually asked me, this is a real thing. And again, this is a tee up question. They say to me, "Sir, as a known white Christian nationalist, why do you support white Christian nationalism?" That's the question. So I had to, learn from Carrie Lake, learn from Ron DeSantis, learn from Trump. And I had to tell the reporter, let's break down your question. Let's go part by part. You said three descriptive three words. Let's do first one. Why am I white? I think it's because I was born that way. That would be my first answer. I mean, maybe I got side enough, it's a melatonin issue. I don't know, and the reporter kind of giggled and they were like, "Well, sir, why are you a nationalist?" And I'm like, "Well, because I'm not a globalist." And they're like, "Well, why are you a Christian?" Because I believe in Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And it was just But that's the sort of stuff that you have to be to a level of emotional fortitude that, because what they try to do, the mainstream media, the strategy they have is to attack the character of a person, so they never have to discuss the validity of the content. So it's the reverse of what Martin Luther King Jr.'s hope was for America. He hoped that people would be judged based on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And these folks want to focus exclusively on the way they look, or where they're from, or if they're a man or a woman or white or black or gay or not. And that's what they want to focus on. So again, I'd love to see DeSantis. I'd love to see Trump in there together as a tag team duo. That to me would be the home run. And a lot of people say, well, DeSantis should be there. He's younger. I just want to be very clear. This is why I would support a Trump DeSantis ticket, is that you learn a lot by mentorship. You learn a lot also by getting experience doing what you're doing. And being the leader of the free world isn't an easy task, one that I certainly am not qualified for at this phase of my life, And so I think it's incredible if you would watch a DeSantis be able to be mentored by President Trump while also proving that he's an effective leader. I mean, think about how differently COVID-19 would have been handled if President Trump had delegated the COVID task force, not to Pence, but to DeSantis. DeSantis would have got up there and said, hey, we're going to keep America open. It's un-American to lock down, because that's what he did in his state. And then we would have been open, and the media would have done what they do. And he's like, I'm sure he would have said something to the effect of, if you want to lock yourself down to hide from a virus, you can do that, but we're not going to mandate it. I mean, you know what I mean? He would have, and I don't know. I'm so excited about the prospect of a Trump DeSantis ticket, because the continuity of government, that'll give you 12 years.
Well, I love it. And to your point about the COVID situation, if Ron DeSantis had been at that helm as a biochemist, I appreciated so much how he handled the treatment aspect of it as well, with monoclonal antibodies, making them available. And then, of course, Biden put a stop to that. But I think that, what you're talking about, it rounds out the team. It checks off every box of leadership. And that's exactly what we need. And I'll ask you, it sounds like you've got some inside scoop. Is there anything you can tell us in terms of how likely that ticket is? Do you have any inside stories you can share with us on that note? I would never
divulge anything in confidence that I know, but I can say people will be very happy with the coming announcements.
Well, we love the sound of that, right, Michelle?
Yes,
Michelle's
indeed.
a Floridian herself. Yes.
I'm almost speechless. I'm like, yes, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I'd be all for that. I think most of America would be all for that. We bring so much sanity back to government, and we can get this country back on track. And it's going to take the fortitude of President Trump. And if we team him up with Ron DeSantis, that's exactly what we'll need to right this ship.
You guys are on it, and if it wasn't for independent journalists like your show, we'd be in a bad spot. And I encourage everybody today, just as a thank you to your listeners, as a way to give people tools. If you go to timetofreeamerica.com, I have 4 free things for you. One, you can watch the documentary about the ReAwaken America tour with Mike Lindell and General Flynn for free tonight at timetofreeamerica.com. We've had hundreds of thousands of people watch that. It's free, timetofreeamerica.com. Film quality, it's great. The people that shot President Trump's documentary actually shot it, so it's a great documentary. Second thing is, you can, if you're looking for jobs that don't require the COVID-19 shots, you can find those jobs at timetofreeamerica.com. Third, if you're looking for a book that explains to you the Great Reset versus the Great Reawakening, you can download that for free at timetofreeamerica.com. 4, if you're saying, I'm looking for a COVID-19 vaccine religious exemption and my pastor won't sign one for me, you can find one there. A COVID-19 vaccine religious exemption at timetofreeamerica.com. And finally, if you want to get tickets to the ReAwaken America tour, we have just under 200 tickets remaining for Branson. That's Branson. That's next Friday and Saturday, November 4th and 5th. And then we're going to be taking the event to Nashville in January. So we just announced that Nashville in January. So you get those tickets at timetofreeamerica.com. General Flynn, Dr. Mikovits, Eric Trump, Pastor Jackson Lawmeyer, Roger Stone, Amanda Grace, Julie Green, Sherry Tenpenny, Dave Martin, Mickey Willis, Jim Brewer, the comedian, Sean Foyt, Praise and Worship. It's going to be awesome. You get those tickets again at timetofreeamerica.com, and you can always name your price.
Well, that's such good news. And, I am such a fan of so many of the folks that you mentioned. I'm a huge fan of Julie Green. I think that what we're looking at is indeed a great awakening of America. I think that the time is now to get involved. It's certainly the time to show up and show out at the polls. This is the most important midterm, I believe, of not just our lifetimes, but of our nation's history. We have to take Congress back. We have that opportunity in just 2 weeks. I founded the MAGA Majority Movement in 2018, and that's exactly what I think we need right now in this moment to tee things up for exactly what you outlined, Clay, that opportunity for President Trump to be welcomed back to the White House. And then the sky's really the limit. We can undo all of the wrongs that have been instituted across America by this horrible Biden regime. And I think this is our next step and our first step to the Great Awakening all across America. And I'm so grateful. We keep you in our prayers, Clay. Your tour is taking America by storm. It's exactly the storm that we need. And we're so blessed by you, not just being part of that and founding that great initiative, but of we're so blessed by you coming on the show tonight and blessing us and our viewers with this critical insight and information. Is there any final words that you can share with us to get us jazzed up for this all-important midterm to come?
No, you got to vote like your life depends on it. Get out there, find a way to do it. I like to be the first person. I'm always the first person to vote in my area. That's what I like to do. I like to be the first guy there. The polls open in the morning. I want to be the first guy to vote. That's my whole thing. I don't want to hear about a line. I don't want to hear about traffic. I don't want to hear about an excuse. I don't want to make an excuse for myself for not being able to get there. I don't want to have a car problem. I'm serious about it. I get there and I vote. That's what I do. I'll be there first. And I think everybody out there, let's get there. Okay. Let's commit to it. A lot of times we get super fired up and ready to go. And then we have a car problem or an unexpected thing. Let's go ahead and put the first thing first. Let's get out that vote. And then let's spend the rest of the day calling our family and friends and saying, did you vote? Did you vote? Like we're an MLM, marketer, like we're a life insurance salesman. I mean, let's make the follow-up call. Let's annoy people. Let's get people out there. Let's work those leads, work those phones. Let's get people out there and vote. And because we're Republicans, we can only vote once. Appreciate you.
Right, but we can bring families and friends and anybody that we find along the way. So,
Right.
so appreciative of you, Clay, and we're so glad that when you said to God, "What can I do?" He said, "Go to ReAwaken America," and we're so thankful that you said, "Send me. Here I am." So,
open invitation for you too. If you ever want to come to the events and set up a media booth, we'd be happy to let you do that for the low price of free. And I can introduce you to all the speakers, and hopefully you get some great guests on your show. And I appreciate all the work that you're doing. Again, thank you so much for carving out time tonight.
Thank you, Clay.
Thank you, Clay. We're honored. Thank
All right,
you.
guys.
Consider having a home here anytime.
All
Thanks
right.
so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
God bless. Wow, another great show and some incredible insight from the great Clay Clark. And Michelle, what do you think is the most important message that you can send as someone who's so involved in the ground game? I mean, you've worked on the DeSantis campaign, you've worked on the Trump campaign. What are some real practical tips that you can give people to keep their eyes and ears open and to make sure that their vote counts in this midterm? Because we got to keep aware, don't we, of shenanigans that could go.
Absolutely. And really, it's what you said. It's eyes and ears open. If it's not too late where you live, find out, but you can volunteer as a poll watcher. And basically you take shifts and you sit there and you watch what's happening. If places that do still have drop boxes, I'm not a big fan of those. I would try to see if maybe you can have some groups of people watch. Just everybody's got to keep their eyes open. I do think that the spotlight is on the election as far as making sure that it's run fairly. That spotlight is shining bright, and hopefully because of that, it will deter a lot of people from doing something they shouldn't be doing. And I'm not saying it's going to stop it, and the other thing is, don't get discouraged and make sure you go out and vote, because the worst thing you could do is throw your hands up in the air, give up, and walk away, because then you're just giving up on this country, and that's not going to work either. If we storm the polls, like that's what we always say, Tricia, right? And we can overwhelm them. And so even if they try to do any shenanigans, we'll completely overwhelm the system, and they won't be able to do it. So get out there and vote. That's it.
That's right. And, unfortunately, the RNC was caught flat-footed. They shouldn't have been in 2020. We knew about what they were up to, but the reality is that's what's happened, but we're ready for them now. And you and I have been very instrumental in forming a project called Operation Eagle Eye. And part of that is a watchdog group that has eyes, ears, and understanding out, looking for any anomalies. If you see something, say something. There are going to be lawyers. I know that the RNC has deployed boots on the ground in terms of a legal team at just about every polling location. There will be resources available to you if you feel that something something has happened, report it. And, the bucket brigade of information that, would have a direct line from what's going on in the polls to getting in front of a judge is a much shorter, line from A to B this time, because at least now we're ready. And it doesn't prevent the Democrats from trying to cheat, but it certainly increases the chances that they get caught.
Okay, one more plug for my great governor. I mean, there's many.
We'll
but,
always happy to have a plug.
He's he's a smart guy, and he's proactive. And for this, just to secure our elections here in Florida, which are pretty secure to begin with, but to make them even more secure, he has set up a election integrity task force. So these people are boots on the ground, ready to keep their eyes on the ball, make sure that nothing weird happens. And our state attorneys are awesome. And we have like Amira Fox, and then we have our please everybody go out and vote for Attorney General Ashley Moody. She's keeping our state really safe, and she's fighting child trafficking and fentanyl and illegal immigration. She's our girl, and we're going to keep her in office too. And that's just a plug for my son. But
we want to plug Ashley as well. And here's the thing. Here's the reality. No matter what state you live in, we're blessed that we have viewership all across the country, even all over the world, in some areas. And here's the reality, that if you are not living in Florida, or if you're not living in Arizona where you could support Carrie Lake by a vote, or if you're not in Georgia so you can vote for Herschel Walker, there are a number of great candidates across the country, still get the word out, because these are, in the Senate and the U.S. Congress, those are national offices that are going to directly impact you and I in our everyday, everything from prices to world leadership. And even these governor's races are important, because as I said, when Clay was on, that, anytime we can anchor freedom in statewide, in getting the word out for a great governor, that is going to help our cause. A lot of governorships are up this November.
And interesting what happens in New York. What do you think is going to happen in New York?
Oh, with Kathy Hochul, I think she's going to, well, look, there are a couple of things that happened recently that give me hope for New York. So number one, there was that New York State Supreme Court ruling that reinstituted all of those city workers who lost their jobs with back pay. Now, when liberal New York is ruling in their judiciary system for freedom, you've got hope. So, Kathy Hochul has been, she's been Cuomo 2.0 without the sexual harassment, at least not yet. So, there are no differences in policy. And in fact, they may have gotten even worse. And she is working hand in hand with Eric Adams, who's the mayor of New York City. And, it was interesting to see Mayor Adams get slapped back so forcefully from the New York State Supreme Court. That shows you that there is a tide turning. Now, Lee Zeldin is the candidate there, and it's critically important that he gets elected exactly for what we've been talking about, to anchor freedom in yet another state, to have a voice for our Constitution in yet another state. If you don't live in New York, you're lucky we're in New Jersey. I would argue we have an even worse governor in Phil Murphy. But the reality is that the more governorships we get for the cause of our Constitution and for our conservative cause, the better. So it's going to be close. When you look at New York, there are a lot of red counties. The problem is the 5 boroughs, and the 5 boroughs are so
actually, I think only 4 of them you have to worry about.
Well, you've got a point. You do have a point.
Staten Island will go red.
Yes, Staten Island always does. They're really an anchor for us as well. But let's hope that overpowers the other boroughs. And we are encouraged also by, I can't remember, you might know, Michelle, I can't remember which area exactly it is, but there was just a big Republican win in the local legislature in a predominantly historically Democrat area that flipped Republican. So, the tide is turning. Things are happening. And if you are on Twitter, please follow Lee Zeldin. Please get the word out. Get behind him. And as Clay said, are some of these candidates perfect conservatives? Maybe not. Is anyone perfect in, that checks every single conservative box? Well, we do. Clay does. But in terms of, candidates who are running, Dr. Oz, I was not a huge fan out of the gate. But let me tell you something. Dr. Oz just put out a very comprehensive crime policy package. And when you look at it, he wants to do everything from having stiffer penalties for the crime that is running rampant in Pennsylvania, especially in the inner city in Philadelphia, to making sure that the cartels are designated as a terrorist organization. That's something I've been advocating for years. And I know President Trump had talked about that during his presidency. Now, is Dr. Oz a lifelong conservative? Well, it doesn't sound like he is, but he certainly is implementing or will implement conservative policies, especially when it comes to crime, when he takes that Senate seat. What's your alternative? Fetterman. I can't understand how that man ever got elected mayor or lieutenant governor, never mind sending him to the United States Senate. It's almost unthinkable when we look at what's at stake. We need to gain more seats in the United States Senate for the conservative Republican cause. And again, in Congress, we can work on pulling those legislators further right. But what we need a GOP majority. That's what's going to make a difference from everything from who is the majority leader to who's the Speaker of the House to what policy is implemented once we get hopefully President Trump back in the White House. And as Clay Clark said, holding the line in the meantime and getting that foundation ready and everything teed up so that we can hold all of these bad actors accountable once we get that MAGA majority that I am certain we can at least accomplish in the House this November 8th.
Yes, ma'am. Stop that hemorrhaging and let's move forward to 24.
Exactly. And when you think about it, right after this midterm, 2024 is going to be right
there,
the horizon. And I'm very excited that Clay Clark kind of teased a little bit that we are going to be very happy.
Yeah.
And some final thoughts on that prospect of a President Trump DeSantis ticket. How happy would we be about that?
You might see me twirl.
Well, you know I will.
That would be outstanding. It's the dream team. And for exactly what Clay was saying, you have Ron DeSantis all teed up for to follow President Trump, and he'll have 4 years to mentor under him. And then watch out. Then 8 years of Ron DeSantis after not only is he strong now, but imagine how strong he's going to be after 4 years of serving as VP for President Trump. And then we get him for 8 years. Oh, it would be phenomenal.
Yeah, more of the dream. And I'll close with this. I think it's very important that we underscore that World Economic Forum situation. I mean, our listeners are very engaged about what's going on in the globalist arena. And, whether people liked Queen Elizabeth or not, I personally was a fan. My grandfather is a descendant of King Lud in England. I have deep roots there, but I'm all America first. But as a viewer on the world stage of what Queen Elizabeth was able to accomplish, she stood on the side of what was right. And I'm very discouraged about what we're hearing from King Charles. He has not been coronated yet. I mentioned Julie Green. She's a prophet. I listen to her quite often. I would recommend her to everybody. You can find her on YouTube. I believe she's on Rumble as well. She has prophecies daily. And she recently said that one of her prophecies that she put out there was that King Charles would not ascend to the throne. He would not be coronated. Now, we'll see. We'll see. But the reason I put that in the context of the World Economic Forum is King Charles has made no secret of the fact that he is fully in line with a globalist agenda. And when you look at the actors that are all lining up behind Klaus Schwab and behind that evil agenda, we need a counterweight to that. And when you think about all the nations that will line up with the World Economic Forum and with Klaus Schwab, there are only two leaders that I can think of that when joined together will be able to put that counterweight against those other forces and pull in the right direction. And those two are President Donald Trump and Governor Ron DeSantis. What do you think that could shape up as, and what would be the consequences if we couldn't pull in that other direction?
Well, first, I don't want to think about the consequences because they'll be severe. And I'm not saying, and if it's not Governor DeSantis we've all pretty much know President Trump is going to run. I mean, he hasn't officially announced. I expect right after the midterms he will. So I'm kind of planning on a President Trump VP, whether it's Ron DeSantis, Kristi Noem. It would be nice if it's Ron DeSantis, but whoever it is, they have to have that fortitude to stand up to these big global bullies. And these guys have been holding like we're a bunch of little puppets. They are the puppet masters, and they are dictating what is happening with our everyday rights and what's going on in our country right now. They're holding the little puppet strings, because the puppets are some of these people, or a lot of them, that we have in our own government, and they're acting on behalf of the World Economic Forum, and that's got to stop, because we don't listen to the World Economic Forum or to the WHO, but yet somehow they've seemed to have gotten a lot of power over my life and your life as Americans.
Well, and it's like Clay Clark talked about. Whenever I hear digital currency and something that could be, switched on and off, like a light switch, now you're talking about something that's vulnerable to a CCP type credit scoring system. And if you don't fall in line, I mean, look at what we saw with the PayPal debacle. They didn't get away with it. I think their lawyers knew that they would be having lawsuit after lawsuit on their hands if they did. But they weren't sorry they did it. They were just sorry they got caught.
Absolutely.
And so we have to keep our eye on that. We've got to keep our eyes all over the globe. Not because we'll do anything differently in the context of what the globalists are doing, but so that we can keep an eye and make sure that it does not come upon our shores. And I want to close with two more things. I'm going to, the final thing I'm going to ask you is for a prediction, because you and I have slightly different predictions for the midterm. But before that, to round out the speculation about 2024 and who would run with President Trump, I want to briefly touch on the fact that Tulsi Gabbard recently left the Democrat Party. Now, I want to underscore that she left the Democrat Party, but she didn't join the Republican Party, nor did she really embrace conservative values. We can't forget that when it comes to her ideology, she still has her mindset in the Democrat camp. She does not have a Second Amendment platform that is going to be acceptable to any conservative. She is not fully pro-life that I know any conservative would balk at. And there has been some talk thrown around that maybe even President Trump would choose somebody like a Tulsi Gabbard. I think that Tulsi Gabbard has to prove her conservative values first and pledge herself to these causes before she would even be a viable candidate for anything. What are your thoughts on that, Michelle?
No, I agree with everything you're saying. I will say there is a reason why Tulsi Gabbard is now on every network and her face is everywhere. There's something that Tulsi Gabbard will be doing, I think, in the near future. I don't think it'll be a VP pick, although maybe she's vying for that. Maybe that's why she's doing what she's doing. She's trying to court a VP position. I thought of somebody else that I think would be an awesome VP. So President Trump, if you're watching and you do decide to run, which I think you will, I hope that you consider Tricia Flanagan as your vice president, because next to Ron DeSantis, she's probably one of the strongest people out there that will fight against the globalists and truly put America first. So I'm just putting it out there. Yeah.
Well, you are so kind, Michelle. You know that I think you should pick you. I'll just go right there. But here's the thing. But you know what? We have our work cut out for us because we are going to, maintain our voices in this election cycle and on through to the presidential election. We're launching some healthcare initiatives. We're going to talk about that. You're a healthcare professional with 30 years of experience. I'm a biochemist with about the same experience in a number of arenas. My specialty was in immunology and oncology. And we're going to be talking about, please stay tuned, because we're going to be launching a product of our own that I've been working on for a couple of years now and developing. We're working with a science team. Michelle and I are spearheading this initiative. And, we've got a team that is going to bring something that I think is the new way to do medicine. at least post-COVID, we've got so much that we're teeing up. We're going to stay in this healthcare discussion. I think Dr. Latipo is going to have a stronger and stronger voice in this equation. We hope, if you're listening, Dr. Latipo, we'd love to have you on to discuss that incredible finding of an 84% increased risk of cardiomyopathy with the vaccine, especially in young men ages 18 to 34. This issue is not going to go away, and the answer is not vaccine. The answer is making sure that you are as healthy as you can be. God gave you an immune system. He gave us all a great immune system. We have to amp it up and make sure that it works the way God intended it. And that's what we want to do, is make sure that medicine now is done differently in a way to support health and not sickness.
Right.
So
we've been conditioned to, especially physicians have conditioned us to, as soon as you walk in their office, they go right to the prescription pad. They don't really think of natural ways to keep you healthy. They go right to the pharmaceutical, and we know what happens from there.
And look, I spent part of my career after being a biochemist in the laboratory. I spent part of my career on that side of the pharma equation, and I can tell you from the inside perspective, we're going to be doing special episodes coming up to give you an inside behind the scenes peek, and it's worse than you could imagine. And I'll give you firsthand accounts on all of that and how that evolved, and and where we are now and where we need to go. But that being said, that's kind of where we're looking now. Is we're looking ahead to the midterms to land on our predictions. I've been saying all along that, we need 5 to take the House majority and take the gavel out of Nancy Pelosi's hand for good. I think we're going to get closer to, my prediction is wavered from between 38 and 45 seats. The low estimates that we're hearing is 25. But Michelle, you've got a shocker. You're going to go.
I'm going for the
right?
high end of your range. I think people have had it. Even the Democrats have had it. There's crime in in their neighborhoods, so safety is a huge issue. CRT and sex in these schools, that's a huge issue with the moms. Inflation is affecting everybody. We're all hurting right now. There's a problem in this country. It needs to be corrected. People, thanks to people like Clay Clark, also with waking people up and us trying to get out there and wake people up and let them understand. But even without our voices, you just have to go to a supermarket or to walk down a city street or just even watch the news and see what's going on to understand that this country right now is hurting and we need to fix it. People are going to show up. They're going to show up big, and you're going to see even Democrats voting red. And I'm going to go to the higher end of your scale. It's going to be a huge victory for the Republican Party on election night, as Trump said.
Well, yeah, well, we are cut with the same pair of scissors, because I do agree that there's going to be a red tsunami. The question is just going to be what the actual numbers are. And either way, like I said, we'll definitely get more than 5 seats, which is all we need for that majority in the U.S. House. And that means that Nancy Pelosi loses her job as Speaker of the House. That means we take the Speaker's gavel out of her hand for good. And that means that ding dong, the witch is gone.
Yeah, well, she better not end up in Florida.
Yeah, I know she was house hunting out there. I hope she doesn't land on your shores. No. But either way, and I will round it out by saying that unfortunately we do not have enough seats in the Senate that are even up for a vote to get that all important 2/3 majority. That would be a filibuster majority, and would also be enough to counteract any veto that Biden would put back to Congress. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. And I think that this is going to be a milestone election. And I'll add with one more really interesting phenomenon, that on November 8th, there will be a total lunar eclipse and a blood moon. And that is the first time in our nation's history that has ever happened on election day. So, stay tuned, because that's going to be something that we're going to be talking about on election day too. It's kind of just an interesting, an interesting wink from God, I think, that he's saying something big. And blood moons, especially, have been associated throughout history as triumph after great tragedy. So, we will stay tuned and we will keep you posted.
What color is that blood moon?
It's MAGA red, in my opinion. So I think we're going to get that MAGA majority that we've been talking about for a few years now. So Michelle, can we leave with any with a hint of anything of where you're going to be on with election coverage?
Yeah, well,
On the
yeah, I mean, hopefully on election night, I have some plans to be with some really nice, important people and hopefully do some coverage live on election night and do some celebrating. That's the plan. I got a few things going on, so hopefully that plan sticks to the plan. And I'm hopeful that it will. But we'll definitely be on election night talking about everything, all the results that are coming in. And it's going to be a big night to celebrate.
Absolutely. And we'll leave it there with a little teaser that we
Yeah.
have some live coverage from a very important place. So we'll leave it there. We'll leave it to your imagination, and we'll keep you posted on what that's going to look like. And in the meantime, that'll wrap it up for this week's episode of We the People with Tricia Flanagan. Thank you so much for joining us. It's always our honor to be able to share some time with you. We're live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Please join us next time. And in the meantime, God bless you. God bless America, and God bless our great president, Donald J. Trump. See you next time.
Good night.
Good night.